Hello, and welcome to Introducing Me. I'm your host, Sarah. I started this podcast to get to know other people and lifestyles while discovering more about myself. Each episode, I'll give a new guest a chance to discuss their background, culture, interests, or whatever they want to talk about to help increase all of our own worldviews. Today, I would like to introduce you to Eric, who is here to talk about how he got to where his life today in personal finance and just kind of whatever we end up talking about. I'm really excited for this conversation to learn about Eric, and we've been talking for a couple minutes, and really that's it. So, Eric, why don't you say hello and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure, thanks. Hi, everyone. My name's Eric Bergenn. I'm a financial planner. I live in West Hartford, Connecticut with my wife, Lauren. We have a 1.5-year-old daughter, Shay. We also share our house with a dog and a cat, who I often refer to as my stepcat, because Lauren had the cat before me. And me and the cat just get along as much as we have to in order to share space. Like I said, I work as a financial planner at New England Financial Group, also in West Hartford, so my commute's really easy. I play music. It's kind of one of my passion things. I've turned my basement into kind of a whole, almost a studio. I have a full drum set and guitars and bass and electric piano. My most recent hobby has been cycling. That's kind of developing a passion for that. So that's been interesting. It's a way to get out there, kind of clear my mind, but also see a bunch of beautiful sceneries and discover new local areas, because you can actually cover a lot of ground on a bike, and I hate running, so it's better than that. That's me in a nutshell, I guess. But I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thank you for being here. So, how did you get into personal finance if you also have a strong passion for music?
I mean, the two things, well, I guess happened completely separate from each other. I just grew up enjoying music and playing music. I never really thought of it as anything that I'd ever consider doing career-wise. I just enjoy it. Personal finance is also kind of a strange thing to get into. When I was in school, I wasn't sure exactly what I was going to get into. I studied economics, and part of the reason that I chose that as a major is because you can do almost anything after studying economics. So it doesn't really limit you to any one specialty. And I guess I was kind of recruited into the position when I was just looking around at things. I was working as a student worker for the Department of Institutional Advancement at Central Connecticut State University. And I ended up writing the annual report for the director of the department, or not writing the report, but doing all the research and giving the numbers for the report. And she had asked me after it was very technical what I put together, because I was studying economics. So I was like, it was very statistic driven, and it was a little bit more technical than it probably normally would be. So she asked me to present it to the board of the Alumni Association. So I did. I didn't think much of it, but I didn't think before that how great of an opportunity that was. I mean, the Alumni Association board is mostly a bunch of executives from Hartford, right? In a Central Connecticut State University, like all around Central Connecticut. So, but I just thought, I'm just doing my job. And then I realized afterwards a few people had came up to me and spoke with me about working with them because of my comfort in presenting in front of folks. And if I had thought about how great of an opportunity it was, I probably wouldn't have been as comfortable presenting in front of folks and probably wouldn't have gotten the opportunities. But at the time, the president of the Alumni Association was a VP at the company that I started with, which was at the time First Investors. Then that turned into Foresters Financial, and then they were also recently acquired by Cetera Investors. So most people wouldn't know any of those names except maybe Cetera Investors, but that was a great jumping off point for me. I learned a lot being there. Gentleman, Curtis Wiggins was his name. That was the president of the Alumni Association and a VP there that brought me on board. He was a great mentor for me, and really helped me learn about how to turn what ended up being a passion into a career. At first, I wasn't sure what I was doing or why I was doing it. But I figured I'm young, I can take a risk. It is kind of a high-risk career. There's a ton of turnover. I think the attrition rate is in like the 90% range. Like most people don't make it a year in that industry. But made it past a year, then 2 years, then 5 years, and here I am. I changed firms since, but kind of running my own my own practice and having been somewhat successful at it.
So, what is it like running your own practice? Are you part of a network or are you kind of out on your own and you're your own boss?
So both of the answer to both those questions are yes, which is a strange thing about my field in general. By being part of a group, I have people who I can work with and I can develop partnerships with and a lot of resources from all those people working under the same umbrella. But I also am able to just run my own business completely, which is for the most part what I do. I do enjoy working with a lot of the people that I work with, but I think everyone has their own way of doing things and has their own relationship with their clients. That's what I really enjoy is spending the time developing relationships with clients and helping them make good financial decisions. So that's what I ended up focusing on a little bit more is kind of just the individual relationship with clients and not working too much with the group. It's a challenge. It's kind of like starting a business, and you're paid based on the work that you do, based on the fees that you charge clients, and in the beginning, even if that fee is small, you're starting with zero clients. So it's it's a challenge for sure. And then to be able to do that and build it in a way that's sustainable, ethical, good, and competitive is certainly a challenge. Hence why so few people succeed in the industry early on. The only time where I see people come in and almost certainly succeed is if they're a second generation or something, and inheriting a book of clients or something like that, which is smart. It's a great way to pass on family wealth, but also unusual.
Yeah. Now, has the current world situation with the pandemic affected your practice at all? Affected how you work?
Totally. Yeah, I I think that for the March when everything shut down, it was scary because I wasn't sure how I knew I was going to have to change how I did business. For the most part, my my source of new clients was mostly referrals from other clients, and a lot of those referrals were done in person, like person to person introductions. Here, you guys should meet each other, and that obviously wasn't available anymore, and it still really isn't. I haven't, other than a couple exceptions, I haven't met a client in person since March, which is weird. And because of that, I had to find new ways to meet people, and I think I have maybe a dozen clients now since then that I haven't met in person. And that's really weird to me because I spent 7 years only meeting in person, and now everything's done like you and I are talking right now over a Zoom call, which is uh, it can be great if things are clicking, but it can also be a real challenge to develop a relationship when I don't know. I feel like the video does help pick up on some nuances in communication and stuff like that, but it's still not the most personal. It's a little step down still. So that was a challenge. I had to completely pivot how I did business, and how I reach out to people, and I think the lasting impact of that is going to be actually having a much more efficient practice. I can now do a lot without ever having to drive to meet people, and that's convenient. I have to be more efficient with my time. I've gotten a lot better at understanding digital marketing and social media and how those things can help. Which I'm not an old guy or anything. I'm 35 years old. I'm technically a millennial. So but I always saw social media as a way to connect with people, not necessarily sell a service. So that was a new challenge for sure. But yeah, so there was a couple months where there was no business. I didn't know what to do. I was kind of looking at different options, and luckily, I think the first couple things I tried worked, so I was able to just keep my head down and keep going. But it was scary for a little while. I wasn't sure what the year was going to look like.
Yeah, it sounds like you definitely had some challenges, but it's been a lot of months and it seems like you're in a good place for the situation at hand.
Yeah, I think that I'm actually in a better place than I was beforehand because it forced me to try new things, and I think it's really important in all aspects of life to get out of your comfort zone and try new things. And sometimes we all fall into the same routine. So I think in the long run, there's a silver lining to all this. I still wouldn't wish it upon the world, but but that's my silver lining out of all this.
Cool. Now taking a little bit of a pivot, your family life. So you've got a kid at home and a wife. So can you talk about growing your family?
Yeah, man, that it's amazing how much it changes you having children and all of the things that you hear people say about having children and how much it changes you and what matters to you and changes your outlook. It all sounds so cliche, and then when you go through it, it's almost annoying realizing how much your life is a cliche for a little while, but it's so wonderful. I uh, obviously the hardest thing about being home for a little while was at the time I had a less than a 1 year old, and she was, I think she was 10 months, and I had to learn how to focus on getting work done with my 10-month old daughter that wanted to play with me right there, and that's tough. But no, that's been amazing. I really enjoy that. The pandemic definitely played a role on that. It's take for granted how much it takes a village, and we don't really have one anymore right now. We will again. We have some great people in our life that are very willing to help, but due to social distancing and different types of precautions that everyone's trying to take to avoid COVID, it's difficult. My father dealt with a health scare this year, and he's in a very high risk class because of that. So we only really see them outside. So grandparents right now aren't a place where we can drop her off and do that. So that's been a challenge. But the great thing about having, I mean, it. I think it's given me like a whole new reason to live, and it's not like I was in a position where I didn't have any before. It's just refreshing, and it's so wonderful. My wife is, she's the perfect kind of counterbalance to me. I'm incredibly outgoing. I always want to fill my time. I always want to be doing a million things at once, and she really likes relaxing, uh, and maybe not doing too much and not talking to people she doesn't know. She's got a great group of friends that she's had since high school, and they're all wonderful people, and that's mostly still who she spends her time with. And they're great people, but I think every year I meet five new best friends. It's just like I'm always out there doing wild things, so it's kind of nice. She keeps me grounded. We After getting together and living together a little while in Connecticut, had an opportunity to move up to Boston and spent a couple of years there, and that's like where I always kind of knew she could be the one, but that's where I absolutely decided um, that that I wanted to spend the rest of my life with her, and where I asked her to marry me, and then we came back down here a few years ago and had a really busy year in 2017 where we both moved. We moved across state lines. We both changed jobs. We bought a house. We got married and got a dog all in 1 year. So that was a whirlwind of a year. Still doesn't compare to last year. Having a kid is just so life changing. And we're definitely, hoping to expand on that eventually, whenever it makes the most sense. So, but yeah, that's everything to me. I mean, family's where it's at.
Yeah, definitely. Family is so important, and with the pandemic, definitely makes it a bit harder. So, what was it like living in Boston?
Well, that was really fun. We had an unusual situation where the reason we moved up there, I actually, from when I was a teenager, I always wanted to live in a city, and Boston's always been my favorite city. So that was always kind of a dream of mine. Never wanted it to be permanent necessarily. Um, I'd be totally cool with living there permanently, but I just wanted to experience it. And my old firm, they had an office right near Boston that a friend of mine at the company was hired to manage the office, and he needed an assistant manager, and he asked me if I wanted to come. And it was exciting. I wasn't sure if Lauren would want to. Again, she's kind of quiet, small town girl. Grew up in Wolcott, Connecticut. I don't know if you know where that is, but unless you're within 20 miles of Wolcott, you probably don't know where that is. And you know, for her, like all of her family lives within a few miles of Wolcott, Connecticut. It's just that's just kind of the feel there. So I wasn't sure whether she'd be okay with it, but she's a nurse. And Boston is an easy place to be a nurse because there's a million hospitals up there. Um, so she agreed to go up there. She actually landed and secured a job before I finished securing mine that was already offered to me. It's that easy for a nurse to get a job up there. And because she took a job as a traveler, which is an interesting experience because they give you these 3-month contracts. And because they give you a 3-month contract, they either provide a housing stipend or find you an apartment and put you up there for free. So we got to live in one of the more expensive cities in the country without paying rent, which made that experience, like, first of all, incredibly fun because all of a sudden we had discretionary income, which honestly we didn't really have before. I was early in my career. I wasn't making much money yet. We were, we were getting by just fine, but we didn't really have a lot of discretionary money. We moved up there. I have, because it was a promotion, I was also getting some more money, and she was making just as good money with free housing, and so we got to really live the Boston lifestyle. We regularly would just pick up and go to a Red Sox game, like without planning it. I still go to Red Sox games, but I have to, buy tickets in advance because I have to drive 2 hours up there and find parking and take a T in and do all this stuff. And we would just, they release tickets same day for, all the time. So we would just go down there sometimes and either grab tickets, or if we didn't like the prices or where the tickets were, then we just go to a bar and watch the game and just live that lifestyle. It was really cool. It was really cool for a couple people that aren't really otherwise city folks. So when we came back to Connecticut, that also kind of drove our decision to move to West Hartford, because after living in a place where we could commute anywhere and walk around to restaurants, Lauren wanted that, and so did I. And that really limits you in Connecticut to like 3 towns. So West Hartford in the middle of the state is kind of it. So that's how we ended up here.
That's a lot of fun to hear your stories about going to the Red Sox game and the ease of it. So you mentioned that Lauren's family is all from right around Wilcott. So where's your family? Are you also all in Connecticut?
Yeah, for the most part, I grew up in Connecticut. I've always lived in Connecticut, except for that, stint in Boston as a young adult, but kind of out on our own there. My my mom is from Colchester, Connecticut, um, where she still lives. Her father lived his entire life in Colchester, Connecticut. His father lived his entire life in Colchester, Connecticut. So that's also a theme on that side of my family. Although some people got out and are all over. I have relatives that did kind of leave that circle. My father also lives in West Hartford, which is cool to have him close by. We have a good relationship, so that's nice. And I have a sister nearby. I have 2 brothers, 2 stepbrothers, I should say, who let's see, my folks split when I was 12, so I probably met them when I was 14 or something like that. So we've kind of grew up together, even though we met a little later on. They're all over the place, but they're nearby. So my youngest, Chris, he lives in Manhattan. And he lives there with his wife Doris. She's from the Bronx, so she wanted to be in New York, and he went to grad school at Columbia got an MBA there, so it's convenient for him. He's also in the startup game, so like that's just a good place to be. They can afford it, so they're enjoying that lifestyle. My other brother Tom, um, he lives out in Peoria, Illinois, with his kind of random, but with his wife and new son. They just had a kid this year, Charlie, who I haven't gotten to meet yet, which is tough. But he's out there in his residency program. He's a surgeon, and I don't know if you happen to know a lot of doctors, but they all go through the same thing where there's a kind of almost random way to align up where you're going to do your residency after med school, and you just kind of got to take what you can get. so he's out there. I think he'll be back in a couple of years when that residency's over. He's in neurosurgery, so it's a much longer residency than a lot of others. Otherwise, he'd be done with it by now. So hopefully he'll be back in the Northeast in a couple of years. But other than that, for the most part, families around here. My father's extended family is all over. He grew up at a son of an engineer who moved around a lot. So all kind of Northeast quadrant, but I think they all kind of settled in Delaware. And he's been up here since then, a long time ago. But Delaware was a regular trip for us. As a matter of fact, Thanksgiving was often spent in Delaware, which also meant that Black Friday shopping was a thing for us, which obviously I'm not doing today. Today's Black Friday. For so many reasons I'm not doing it. I don't want to anyway, but when you're in Delaware and there's no sales tax on top of the sales, you got to go out and save your 50% on everything or whatever it is. So, but no, for the most part, all of my close family is either here are going to be close by again eventually, hopefully.
So do you envision staying in the house that you're currently in for a while and having your daughter grow up in West Hartford?
Definitely having my daughter grow up in West Hartford. I mean, things could change, but whether or not we stay in the house that we're in depends, I think, a little bit on how big of a family we end up having. We don't have a tiny house, but it's not. It's a 3-bedroom, and one of them's, it wouldn't be a good bedroom for a teenager. It's a fine bedroom for a baby. It's a good nursery. So either we'd have to do some work to the house, or maybe get a bigger house nearby. But I love this town. I'm really involved in the business community, and just in general, really involved in the town. I involved in the Chamber of Commerce locally, the West Hartford Center Business Association. I'm sit on the board for the Noah Webster House. Like, there's just so many things in this area that I love, and I'd love to kind of stay a part of. And there's not a lot of towns around here, again, where you can walk around and enjoy the restaurants and, with some of the best schools in the country. So for raising kids, it's a great place to be.
So what do you do with the different organizations that you talked about, like in the town and the different commerce and being on the board? How did you get involved in all of that, and what does that entail?
So the Chamber of Commerce, it's a bunch of members. Technically, everyone pays to be a member, but not much at all. It's a nonprofit organization that advocates for businesses in town. But I've been I feel like it's a good place to network from, because there's a lot of other people that are in business for themselves and who know a lot of other people and want to help each other grow. So it's always been a good organization to be part of. I volunteer on their Young Professionals Committee, which I'm still technically fall into that group, I guess, of young professionals. And that's been it's been fun. It's a good way to meet people and just kind of help out other businesses as well. So getting involved there was basically a business decision that I have also gained friendships from. The Noah Webster House, being on the board of trustees from that is a little bit random. A good friend of mine was on before, still is the treasurer, the assistant treasurer of that group, and he just asked me and another friend to join because he thought we had some expertise that would help the board out, and I just thought it was a really cool opportunity because I mean, I'm just a little bit interested in history, and I am a little bit of a stickler for the English language. So working at like a historical museum that is the house that the guy that's most known for modernizing American English was born is like, all right, well that works. Like those are a bunch of interests of mine. Um, and and it's kind of cool to see behind the scenes how these organizations are able to run and sustain themselves, because it's not easy, especially right now. Of course, I chose an interesting time to become part of this, but yeah, no, it's really fun. Mostly, it's just going to a monthly meeting and making sure that everything's operating the way it should, helping come up with ideas to improve. This year's been a bit chaotic, because it's really about like how can we sustain what used to be fairly easy. The But a lot of the big ways of getting funding were by putting on events with people coming, and that's challenging in these times. So trying to find ways to do things without as much in-person interaction is interesting for sure.
Definitely, working in nonprofits is a bit of a challenge in 2020.
Yeah. Is that coming from personal experience?
A little bit, yeah. So I work in my university's advancement department, and I also am on the board of a local annual event that was canceled. So, yeah, of course, feedback and just dealing with public opinion and having people disagree on things. And I manage the social media aspect of all of it, so I get to deal with all of it firsthand. Right, you figure things out and you make things through, and you hope that things will survive.
Yeah, I think a lot of what everyone's doing right now is um, just surviving through the winter, basically. Like, we're now at the point where it looks like there's a decent number of good vaccines with good efficacy that are able to be produced, but who knows at what rate and what kind of numbers and when and all that stuff. So I think that a lot of people at this point is just about like literally holding everything together with all the strength you got and just outlasting at this point. It seems to have, I don't know about your experience, but in my experience, it seems to be that that's a big shift that happened really recently, from how are we like, let's find a way to permanently operate in this space just in case, to, I mean, we still have to kind of find ways to operate in a new way, but it looks like there's a light at the end of the tunnel now. So maybe it doesn't have to be quite as permanent thinking, but let's just figure out the next 6 months.
Right, figure out the next 6 months, and also back to what you were talking about with your job. What will you keep from what has been going on? What did you learn? What did you figure out that actually works out really well that you were never doing before that you can then take advantage of?
Totally.
So, what else would you like to share about your life? Is there anything you were joking about? Oh gosh, I don't remember the podcast name now. The
Death,
podcast that
sex,
you,
and money.
yes, yeah, which I thought was just like so funny. So, is there other things that you would like to talk about you personally?
I mean, I don't know. I'm not as I've never been that fascinated with myself, but at the same time, sometimes I get on telling stories and I realize that the stories themselves are fascinating. So it's interesting. But no, I enjoy talking about um, things that you're not supposed to bring up at the dinner table, so that's why that podcast is always appealing to me. And I do enjoy quite a few, although I used to listen to a lot more than I do nowadays. I used to drive a lot for work, so it was a great way to fill time and also learn something. And you can't read a book while driving, so so podcasts are great for that, and kind of. But I always enjoyed those types of interesting topics. Those, can you do this? Ethical questions and dilemmas are just fun and interesting to me. Um, hence why I brought that up. Um, but no, I mean, a lot of that stuff is not like religion is not a big part of my life. So sometimes I feel like when people talk about religion, I can get a little almost like facetious sometimes, where I'm not trying to be insensitive, but I also don't, um, like, you couldn't offend me talking about religion. So I struggle sometimes to realize that, like, oh, right, some people have really deeply held beliefs that you have to respect. And you should. I'm not advocating for not respecting those deeply held beliefs, but because I don't, align with anything like that, it's one of those topics that I always tread lightly around, for fear of, uh, saying something that might offend. And same thing with politics, which I always struggle to just really fit in with any politics too much. I have opinions that might align with different schools of thought out there, and I always joke with my friends that I could never really run for any type of office, because even the people that most closely align with me would so disagree on certain topics that they never vote for me. So it's tricky. Although I guess I did do that in college. I was involved in, like, the student government in college, which was really fun. But I think people vote a little differently as college students, and versus like town politics or statewide politics. So, but no, I'm very much interested in controversial topics. But like I said to you in an email, I'm not that controversial. Like, I like talking about it, but ultimately I'm not, I wouldn't say boring, but pretty uncontroversial for sure.
Well, and as long as you're respectful of other people's opinions and beliefs, and that you're able to say, like, oh, like especially with religion, like, I respect how you feel. And like that's kind of the important part, and not discrediting people.
Yeah, I think that is important. I struggle with that. I grew up, so I mean, my family is very Catholic, which means I mean, Catholicism is full of dogma, like that, more than a lot of other religions. I mean, there are plenty of fundamental religions that are full of dogma, but Catholicism has some weird ones. It's like half guilt and half dogma, and in my experience anyway, again, and I know a lot of people have different experiences there, but because of that, like, there were a lot of things growing up where, like, I have people who are close to me in my family and otherwise, who have, like, a sexual orientation that wouldn't line up with the church, and because of that, like, you I've ended up in awkward conversations with family, about, like, the concept of, like, respecting other people's beliefs, but also kind of requiring those beliefs to respect other people, and that's where I've always had a hard time with those subjects, and where sometimes I fall out of favor with certain folks, because and again, in fairly uncontroversial ways, but um, it's the old idea of like, I'm a big advocate for protecting people's religious belief. But, like, there's a stopping point, which is, like if someone says, like, I can't do that, it's against my religion, right? Like, yes, I will fight to the death for that. If someone says you can't do that, it's against my religion, it's like that 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 can't hold anymore. It doesn't work anymore. Like your freedom of religion is for you, right? And other people have freedom of religion for them. And so, and I find that a lot of times when like fundamentalists get into the idea of like, no, everyone has to act this way because it's the only thing that's right, is where those conversations can kind of blow up. And, like I have an aunt that every now and then reaches out to try to save me because I'm not religious, and it's a little awkward. Um, and like, like will tell someone who my sister is gay, and she'll tell her like, oh, no, it's okay, but I'll pray for you. It's like, well, that doesn't mean it's okay. What you're saying is that you think that's wrong, and you shouldn't tell people that. So again, like I struggle in certain areas with the topics of religion, but and politics, but for the most part, yeah, I think that as long as I'm like I can be respectable, very respectful of other people's beliefs, just as long as they don't require other people to also believe the same thing. Right.
Right. And I think that's the best way to handle it. Now, obviously, with your job, you mentioned it a little bit. Being ethical is extremely important in the world of finance. So have you ever had any setbacks, issues? I don't really know, some situations where being ethical, not like was an issue, but just any sort of stories you can share.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I can't share any specifics on names or anything for client privacy purposes, but it's very easy to just not share names, and then all of a sudden it's easy. So yeah, I mean, I've definitely come across some interesting situations where you really have to think it through and like what's going on. I've had like an interesting thing. So when in the world of investment management, if you manage an account for someone, then short of having a power of attorney, no one else can make decisions about that account or even ask about that account without that person's explicit consent, which is sometimes interesting in marriages, because for example, a husband or a wife can't ask about the other person's IRA because technically they're not on that. And the reason I use IRA as an example is because it has to be an individual account. That's the first letter so of IRA is an individual retirement account. So like you can't have a joint account. You can't give that permission without a power of attorney, and no one ever does that. But I've had situations where, husbands and wives kind of disagree about certain things sometimes, other times do agree about things. And then I feel like, one person's reaching out to me to try to have something done on the other's account, and I tell them I can't do that. And then the other person reaches out to me say the same thing. And I have to try to make some sort of judgment call on whether or not I think they're, entering into that fairly or being coerced or whatever. There's some weird things that can happen sometimes. And I think a lot of it has to do with relationship dynamics. I've certainly seen a lot of work done by people in my type of a position that I found to be incredibly unethical, that I've had to, fight through or fix or help change. And it's always challenging because there's a lot of rules about how you can communicate about other people as well. The SEC and FINRA there's a lot of legislation out there. There's a lot of regulatory language out there that you have to follow, and it's a lot to know. And luckily, all of us in the field have some sort of compliance department somewhere that we can reference. But they just are. They know the rules. They don't necessarily know the situations that we're dealing with, unless we can just explain them really well. So yeah, there's some interest. Ethics come up a lot, and I think that I remember a joke I heard when I was a kid. My father's a lawyer, and I remember someone told me a joke when I was a kid that's always stuck with me. That's it's really that lawyers get a bad name because 1% of lawyers, or what is it? No, that 99% of lawyers give the rest of them a bad name. Um, Basically saying that almost all lawyers are bad. And I think that that's definitely that comes up in every industry, right? And if you look at people in general, like it'd be hard to kind of guess on how many people as a percentage are truly ethical and think with care and deeply about these issues. Um, and I think that you hear things all the time of someone kind of recommending something to someone or doing something that you don't think is right. It doesn't necessarily mean it's unethical. So there's a lot of gray area. Um, but luckily, I've never had to deal with anything incredibly controversial, or I haven't ever been witness to embezzling or anything crazy. It's mostly just whether or not someone's really got the client's best interest in mind, and whether or not they're really following the proper protocols. Um, but but there's people do get caught all the time, and I think that the system actually works relatively well to kind of stop too many bad actors, but it is difficult to kind of find the right way to deal with that stuff when it comes up.
Yeah. Now, I'm sure that people, when they find out that you are in the financial world, if they don't already, they always ask you for advice. So, what is like kind of the one general piece of personal finance advice that you like to give to people?
Um, so there's a couple of things that I think I should probably mention there. And one, the first thing I often have to say is that if anyone's telling you that this thing is the only thing to do, it's the only right thing, I think they're likely categorically wrong. Like, there is never one right way to do things. Um, and and that's something that I try to explain to folks a lot, is that, doing things correctly really it's a lot of work. It's not just what's the best investment. Well, it's not that simple. It really does involve knowing everything about your life and taking the time to really plan out where your money needs to be going, and what kind of time horizon you have on investments. Um, and, there's a little bit of predictive analysis that we're doing, but for the most part, um, taking a long-term approach is almost always better. Um, but um, I'll often, like, people will sometimes ask me about, like, investing in a specific stock or sector or whatever it is, um, and I think that a lot of folks just don't quite understand just how the system works, and how investments work at a basic level. The thing that I've gotten the most of, I think, in the last 5 or however many years, 7 years I've been doing this, is a lot of people have been asking about the two most trending sectors are like weed stocks and cryptocurrencies, which I first have to explain that cryptocurrencies aren't stocks. It's different. It's confusing, and it's really speculative. And honestly, like, almost anyone that asks me about it, like, sometimes the best thing I can say is, you probably don't understand enough about blockchain technology, or the specific cryptocurrency you're referencing, to make a good investment decision. Even if it is a good investment decision, you probably don't have the information to determine that. And because if you did, you wouldn't be asking me. But and then with as in any kind of new sector or new area of the market that's growing, yes, there's a ton of potential, and if you invest in the right, you know, weed stock, then yeah, you'll make a ton of money. But also, whenever there's a new area, that means there's going to be a bunch of new companies, and when there's a bunch of new companies, a bunch of them are going to fail. So you're also at risk of losing a lot of money. And generally, if you're looking for the quick, easy thing, it doesn't exist. There is no quick, easy way to make money fast. There's good fundamental techniques that you can use to consistently get the best kind of return for the amount of risk you're willing to take, and by being properly diversified and just building it right. And I think that people kind of in search of the next great thing, the next the next Google or the next whatever great investment, the next Amazon or the next Uber. There's for every one of those, there's thousands of companies that don't make it. So it's probably better to not let that get in the way of just starting to move in the right direction.
That's a lot of great advice, and I appreciate you sharing that. Now, with all of my listeners, before I close it out, I ask a random question that more or less doesn't have anything to do with anything. So my question for you is, in a world where things are different, what is your dream vacation?
Oh man, that's a really good question right now, right? I think my dream vacation right now is just a vacation, like just the. I had 2 scheduled this year that aren't happening. Obviously, they were scheduled from close to the beginning of the year. I haven't been to Europe before, so I don't. And Europe is very big and culturally different from one place to the next. So that's a silly answer. I can get a little bit more specific. What I want to do is, like I mentioned earlier, my father had a health scare this year, and it was like one of those things that made me realize time is a little bit limited. Him and I like to golf together, and we have some Irish roots. So I think it'd be really fun to go play golf with my dad in Ireland, and I think that's something that I'm going to try to plan for next year. Because we've kind of talked about it, but that would be amazing. And I think to make it a real dream vacation, I'd also have to bring my family along and be able to spend some time with them too. So hopefully, spend a week or so in the UK in general, and just see the sights, play some golf, and then maybe. I think my dream vacation would be like a month though, just traveling around Europe and taking in all the different cultures, because like a lot of the Mediterranean areas, like I love wine. I think that'd be fun to go to France and Italy, and that'd be great. Spain, where they make some of the best wines in the world. But now I'm going to spend the rest of the day thinking about my dream vacation. So thank you for asking, because that is a fun thing to think about. And I think that honestly, for the most part, dream vacations are a very achievable thing. Like a lot of dreams are not achievable, but vacations totally are. So thanks for putting me onto that.
Yeah, you're welcome. And I hope that next year you and your dad can go golfing in Ireland.
Me too. Me too.
All right, that brings this episode to a close. I will be leaving information in the description of this episode. So Eric's website has a lot of good information about finance in general. So if you're always looking for more information, he has a lot of good resources out there on his business website. So I'll definitely be sharing that in the description. And he also recommends checking out Daniel Crosby, who talks a lot about behavioral finance and psychology. And you would use that sort of information if you're looking for good decisions in investing. That is where Eric definitely points people. And if you would like more information on the podcast, our Instagram and Facebook are in the description as usual. So we'd love for you to go and check that information out. And if you'd like to connect with the podcast and be a guest, you can always send us an email. So thank you so much to Eric for spending time with me today. I really appreciated hearing your stories, and to my listeners for taking the time out of your day to hear a new story. Until next time, bye.
All right. Thanks so much for having me on, Sarah. Everyone go back and listen to all the other podcasts too. So check out Introducing Me podcast. Go back and listen to all the past ones because there's a lot of interesting stuff up there. Thanks.